It's hard to believe it's been a year's worth of episodes.
I guess technically next, as we're recording this, next week is a year of releases, and this is a year of recording.
Well, I guess it depends on how fuzzy you want to get with the whole episode 0.
Oh no. So it was last week?
I mean, technically, but, 1 through 52 are officially the first year, and then 0 was figure it out, get things ready to go to start the first year. So, yeah, and it's a gray area.
It's not.
It is.
It's a year of recording. Plus 1 week.
Yes.
It's a year of official episodes. You have to qualify it now.
Well, you don't have to. But of course, we're going to.
I mean, if you want to be accurate, what kind of monster do you think I am?
I was thinking about it. You
were thinking about what kind of monster I am?
Well, that too. But no, I was thinking about whether, what I would do if I took the time to do any kind of research or anything prior to an episode. Something that I sometimes do, sometimes don't do. But I was thinking about what overall you would describe the year of episodes as from a general talking point perspective. And we covered a wide range of topics. Unsurprisingly.
Yes, it is a really wide range of topics, and there were some long episodes as well.
I do wonder, I don't get that granular with episode tracking or analytics or anything, because I just don't really care to be bothered to set it all up for the most part. But I do wonder, without having feedback, whether the longer episodes or shorter episodes are more popular in general.
So I think an hour is still kind of a long show for a lot of folks, and I don't know. I mean, it feels like a short show for me.
Yeah, I agree, and it's one of those things that's kind of what makes me wonder, generally speaking, whether there's kind of a sweet spot for the average person listening, or if it's the general focus shouldn't be on the average person, but should be on the episode anyway, because most people probably don't listen to every episode of a podcast.
I don't know what kind of monster doesn't do that, but
I don't.
I don't either. There's one see, that's the thing. There's a few podcasts I listen to every episode, and there's a podcast that I look at and I'm like, all right, I'm looking for some specific information. This podcast might be a good source for that information, and then I'll go look through and see, does it have it, and it does or does not, and I'll listen to the ones I'll listen to that show for that information. But that's more of I'm not really listening to the podcast for that reason. I don't automatically download those episodes.
Well, I think the entire premise of ours is predicated more on trying to grow a fairly consistent listener experience anyway. So it makes sense to treat it as something that someone wants to listen to to the show in its entirety.
Yeah.
But if they happen to just pick it up for an episode here and there, great. That's kind of a bonus. I have had some feedback, most of it indirect, but surrounding episode 50 in general.
More as from what's our feedback? Ooh.
Just positive comments. Nothing that has come directly to me, but by way of other people mentioning to other people around me that they listened and enjoyed it or liked it, or just some flattering compliment of some sort.
I'm glad that someone's listening. At
yeah,
this
me
point,
too.
At that point, is that our most listened to episode?
Probably. That goes back to, I don't really track that granularly. The only thing that is currently tracked are the native Squarespace Analytics, since that's where it's hosted. And so I get a subscriber count and a number of visits count. And that's mostly it. I mean, there's some additional details, but I'm tracking a verse in general, so I don't tend to look at other options for trying to figure out like which episode gets the most plays and things of that nature.
I gotcha.
And I did get a heads up that we probably want to listen to friend of the show, JF's podcast, the episode that he will release or has scheduled to release this Thursday. It's a response to or inspired by episode 50.
Yeah, I've been listening to his podcast, and now I feel like we've got homework, and I'm all excited about it.
Yeah, I don't listen to it continuously, but I do catch up like when I do, meaning that I don't listen to it as it comes out necessarily, but then I'll binge whatever number of episodes I've missed in a row when I do get a chance to.
Well, you put some interesting. You linked to some interesting articles in the show notes here.
I did, and I was debating whether to go straight into that as a topic or have more of a reflection on a year of podcasting, but I don't really have anything else to mention about the past year of podcasting, I don't think. I mean, it's been a fun experience so far, and I think we've gotten much better at it, and I know I've gotten better at editing by a long shot, so I'm happy with where we're at and look forward to continuing for the next year.
Me too. I feel like as a whole, the world is a better place than it was a year ago. But you wouldn't necessarily be able to tell that about what we're about to talk about, from what we're about to talk about.
Yeah, I'd agree. And you know, the pessimist in me says that there are a number of reasons to be concerned about the upcoming year. But there's a lot of unknown in that. And so I don't want to derail it with, thought experiments that have no true basis, just some concerning articles and trends that make it interesting to see what happens next. And that's partially related to the topics we'll get into and partially not. I'll just, real quick side note, one of the articles that also caught my interest that I did not put in the notes was talking about variants of interest versus variants of concern and some other mutations of SARS-CoV-2 that are starting to spread that were first identified, I think it said in May of 2021. I might have my timeline wrong. But gist of the article was that the variant observed had a significantly higher rate of transmissibility and a significantly higher risk of creating serious infections. I don't think that's the wording they used, but that's how I'm going to paraphrase it. But very little is known about it. So I don't want to go off on a tangent in general. It's just I wonder if we're at another tipping point based on the lack of those eligible getting vaccines. So this is the, I guess, semi-regular plea. If you're eligible for a vaccine and you have any concerns about it whatsoever, talk to your doctor, follow their guidance. If you're able to get the vaccine, get the vaccine. Plain and simple. And I'll leave it at that unless you have anything else to add before we delve into the other links.
If you have any questions about the vaccine, talk to your doctor.
It's really that simple. It's a medical issue. Talk to a medical professional. So with that, I saw 3 different articles that just kind of made me slap my head. And the first one I linked is the one that I think it warrants the most discussion, so I'm going to save it and talk about the other 2 first. Those 2 both come from Texas.
Yeah. Yeehaw.
No real surprise there.
You know,
Florida gives Texas a run for its money lately.
Well, I also want to point out that the Texas government doesn't, not all Texans are Texas's decision-making body.
Yes, that is very fair, and something that I was going to also emphasize with the second of the two links. So the first one, it's been in the news quite a bit. Texas placed further restrictions on basic voter eligibility. That may not be the perfectly accurate phrase, but in essence, Texas has made it tougher for people to vote. In a nutshell, that's the gist of it. And it's been in the news because Republicans in Texas proposed the bill. Democrats in Texas fled the state legislature in order to not have a quorum available to vote. Eventually, of course, had to return. Finally had to vote. It was passed without their support anyway, and signed into law by the governor. I didn't go read all the details. I read them once before. I'm real fuzzy on the logic, but in a nutshell, Texas has made it more difficult for people to vote who are not the people that those Republicans in power want to vote. Is that a fairly fair assessment in your opinion?
Yeah, I have the article put up in front of me, and I could read the key facts.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. The state House and Senate both passed a final version of the bill, which is known as Senate Bill 1. The most recent draft would ban drive-through and 24-hour polling places, two options offered by Houston's Harris County last year, require mail-in voters to provide ID numbers, prohibit officials from sending out unsolicited mail-in voting applications, and grant more access to partisan poll watchers. The bill excluded some controversial earlier Republican proposals, including limits to Sunday voting hours and provisions making it easier for courts to toss out election results. The Texas Tribune and New York Times reported that. The bill... so the last key fact was that I guess this was written before the bill was signed by Governor Abbott, but it has... I guess it was signed into law today.
That was the news that I saw, yes.
Yeah, those were the key facts of this article.
Yeah. So, at a high level, you can certainly make the case that it sounds reasonable, right? You're basically trying to provide some level of confirmation by way of the ID that a person is a registered voter. That seems to be the takeaway, right? I have two major problems with that. One, there are voter registration records that are maintained by the local government that they compare information to, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the way it works everywhere else that I'm aware of. If I go in person, sure, I have to provide my ID. I don't have a problem with that. That's an easy way of identification. That's what it's there for. I don't even really care that you have to provide it by mail. But if you're matching name and address and all the other information to your already on file records, what is this provision actually doing? Like, I just don't get the need for that provision. I mean, sure, you write in an ID number. Is that something that you wouldn't be able to get otherwise if you were really trying to fake a vote? I don't know. That provision just, it doesn't make sense because
it's just another barrier.
Well, it doesn't do anything. Well, let me rephrase. It doesn't do anything other than what you already should be doing on the other side of it. It just requires somebody writing in a number so that you can flag that one if the number's not filled out and toss it out. Right? Isn't that really, in a nutshell, what we're coming down to?
Yeah.
Like if you forget to write your name, they're going to toss that one out too.
Yeah.
It's no different. It's just yet another field that is mandatory that they hope you overlook.
Right. It's one more, and depending on where it shows up, it could be in an obscure location.
So generally speaking, like I don't have a problem with someone having to have a state-issued ID to prove their identity. I say that with a caveat that I don't really like the concept in the first place, but it is a legitimate concern, right? We require it for many things. I can't say that that's a bad provision necessarily. It just seems like a dumb provision because they're matching my name and address when I vote. They don't give anything about the number on my ID.
Right.
It just, I don't know, that feels like it's trying to target something that I'm just not aware of.
Anything that you do to make it more difficult to vote or make it so that you can toss out a vote because of a clerical error, perhaps, or administrative error, that's wrong.
Right, and that is at the heart of my issue with it in general, because I also don't know if there's a provision for if there's a clerical error, can they contact the person to correct it? Because some states do offer that. And if that's in place, well, fine.
But you're just creating more overhead.
Right. But you still have to count the vote if it's a legitimate vote and it's in on time. So
right.
All you're really doing there is delaying the results of the election.
So the sort of laws that need to be passed are laws that allow for online registration or automatic registration, same-day registration.
Yes. So this is kind of the crux of my second issue, is that everything that is being passed from a voting perspective is not being passed in a way to make the process better or more efficient or more secure.
I don't even think you need to be able to prove citizenship.
I don't know. That one I might argue.
You need to show voter identification, like some sort of identification, perhaps, so that you don't, vote multiple times. But I don't think you should have to show citizenship. There's already states that don't require that.
But in order to register to vote, you have to be a U.S. citizen according to the Constitution. So that's where I would say that's at registration time.
Well, it depends on what you're voting for. If we're talking about like a certain federal elections, yeah, I would agree with that, but not everything. Like you might need to be, you can be a non-citizen voting for a state issue or a city issue or a county issue, or county votes, city votes, state votes, that sort of thing.
Well, I'd say there's still a difference there. You do still have to prove legal residency status.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe that's the difference from that perspective, is that you would have to provide some legitimacy for your state of permanent residence. It doesn't have to be citizenship, but it would have to be citizenship based on what election you were voting in. Would that be a fair way to kind of distinguish it?
Yeah. And you provide a form for like non-citizens to cover municipal, county, and state votes.
Well, the beauty of all of this is if you streamline it and make it an electronic process, you can flag a bit
yes.
that says these are the qualified elections to vote in, or turn off a question that they're not eligible to vote for.
Exactly. Anything that... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, this is where we really should be looking at technology to make the process better instead of continuing to revise manual in-person processes.
Yes. Anything to make this easier, smoother, and more accessible for citizens and for matters where non-citizens can vote, that should be done. I mean, that's... Anything contrary to that is probably based in...
Well, I'm gonna
go ahead. Go ahead, because
anything contrary to that is very specifically attempting to influence the vote.
Thank you. Thank you for finishing that thought of mine.
It's any way that you are attempting to make some process harder when it comes to voting, you're targeting a group for whatever reason. You're either targeting a specific group that you know is going to vote in a specific fashion and have specific things handy, or you're targeting a group that you're hoping this provision restricts in some fashion. There is no other way that you can spin this. You can try to make plenty of arguments around why different aspects are required, but if you're not trying to make it more secure through the many technologies at our disposal to make it electronic and convenient and online, those arguments fall short by a long shot.
I agree. And it's one of those things where the current way of doing things needs to also stay in place for those that prefer to do that. This is not one of those things where the electronic way is the way that we're going to replace the old way. This is one of those things where as long as we need to keep the old way, we keep the old way because we want to have as many people voting as possible. It's all about making it as easy as possible, without restrictions that are designed to target certain groups. And then it needs to be the most secure. It needs to be secure.
And I want to emphasize that last point too, because repeatedly we've heard multiple quote unquote public figures talk about how election fraud is prevalent and et cetera, et cetera. There's plenty of rhetoric around elections in general. Multiple agencies, multiple organizations are tasked with charging the security of elections. All of them have overwhelmingly come out to state this most recent election in 2020 was one of the most secure and least fraudulent elections that we've ever had. And I almost don't want to even add the least fraudulent bit, but there will always be some level of attempting to influence the vote. That's kind of a given. The point is that you identify it and not let it actually influence the vote with the final tally. So attempted election fraud is one thing, and that's what everybody wants to focus on as quote-unquote election fraud. But attempted election fraud does not mean that the election was fraudulent. It means that somewhere, someone attempted to tamper with the vote.
I'd like to point out at this point that laws like this are the most common form of election fraud that exists because they are tampering with the vote.
Yes. 100% agree.
Yeah, I don't want to mince my words here. So
it's just like the redrawing of districts when you're talking about congressional lines.
Gerrymandering.
And yes, I mean, all of those things are ways to play with and manipulate the vote. The census is used to influence and manipulate redrawing congressional district lines in order to help manipulate the vote.
That is fraud made legal by corruption.
Correct. I don't think I have anything else on voting. I mean, overall, if you look at the voting process, if you look at recent elections, and you truly believe that these things are needed and positive, nothing I say is going to change your mind. You're just going to remain a moron until you die.
Well,
and
there's some...
I mean, yeah, it is what it is at that point. It's just like those people who are anti-vaccine. They're going to be a moron until they die.
Some of them are winning Darwin Awards for it as well.
Yeah.
On to the next
I don't
Texas...
have much patience for that kind of stuff anymore. Mm-hmm. Have you noticed?
Oh, no, nor do I. I was just going to say, would you like to move on to the other Texas law?
I would, because this one I didn't realize until I happened to see an article that crossed my path today, actually.
I saw it today as well.
So there's a law that was drafted that specifically limits the time frame for a woman to get an abortion to within the first 6 weeks.
Sometimes you don't even know.
Well, there are a lot of things about this that I find unethical, just to say the least. One, it was written in a way that no state official can do anything. There is no enforcement by the state. None. Absolutely nothing. No criminal recourse, no prosecution, nothing. The state doesn't do anything. It's a law that was written to allow a private citizen to sue somebody else because of their involvement with an abortion. Whether it's driving someone to a clinic, the doctor performing it, the person requesting it, knowing about it and not stopping it, like any level of knowing about an abortion that happens at the 6-week mark or later, you're able to sue that person. What kind of fucked up shit is that?
I believe this is like
I can tell you exactly what it is. This is those people crafting the law are taking an ideological position and making it actionable against those who have a different ideological position or a different medical position. Because the counter argument here, let's say you're at 13 weeks and it's either abortion or both die. Your hands are tied. As a doctor, you can't perform a life-saving procedure because then you can be sued. As a human being carrying a child at that point, you can't perform a life-saving procedure because anybody that knows about it can sue you.
Yeah.
Like, this is the most absurd, most asinine way of imposing a ideological belief on a group of people that I've seen yet. And what makes it scarier is that it's going to the Supreme Court on the shadow docket being the one where there's no in-person testimony or hearing.
Yeah.
It's just going to be a ruling from the Supreme Court.
It's based on its merits.
And I don't think the Supreme Court can overturn it based on there not being a constitutional basis for what is occurring, because it's not the state attempting to restrict the rights of its citizens.
It's going to be it's certainly going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
No, I can also certainly make the case that you could say this is imposing a burden on the individual rights of a person to make a decision, but that starts getting pretty murky as well, and I'm not so sure the Supreme Court is comprised of people who will view it outside of the ideological principles.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I don't know.
There's a lot of concern there.
Yeah, I don't know what to expect from this set of justices. They have done some things that have been, I wouldn't necessarily call them pleasant surprises, but I'm just like, okay, you're not as awful as those who put you in power. That kind of.
It's been refreshing to see that there has been a adherence to the rule of law and the thought behind it, and not an adherence to individual beliefs.
Yes. And coming from those who you might expect to have a certain set of individual beliefs and might be ready to flex those beliefs, but they're not. They are like I think refreshing is a really good word. I wanted to read a section from the article that you did send to me about this, because it uses adjectives that are that tend to be hyperbolic, but I think in this case they're not, and I felt like I think they're good to share.
Yeah, let's do it.
It says a Lone Star State has created an Orwellian system where neighbors could be paid to snitch on neighbors as lawyers profit from a process that could have been designed by the East German Stasi. In the legal discovery process, clinics could be forced to turn over women's medical records to prove or disprove whether they had an abortion and how old the embryo was. That's there's so much there just in those two sentences.
And I'm really hoping that last piece is latched onto and focused on as a violation of federal privacy law.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's about the only legal argument that I'm aware of that could just completely strike it down without any type of hearing or justification.
Other than this being like horribly immoral and horribly barbaric, yeah, that might be its only merit for the liberties of women. Because at the end of the day, I'm gonna step outside of what this article, the specifics of this article, but at the end of the day, abortion laws or restricting abortion is not about babies. It's not about human life. It's about controlling women's bodies. That's it.
Yes. And so I want to agree on how horrible this is in general, but I want to focus on the point that I'm illustrating here is that what is the Supreme Court charged with doing? They're technically charged with only declaring whether a law is constitutional or not and overturning it based on that merit, which is why I say the attachment to the invasion of privacy is the best grounds for striking it down. There are plenty of other better reasons in a general sense,
like in a human in the sense of human decency.
Correct. But what the Supreme Court can and can't do, depending on what they choose to do, which is those are two separate things, but the way they are mandated to look at it is supposed to be on legal merit and constitutionality. That's where I have real concerns about whether this is going to proceed or not. Because if you take a step back from that and you look at it from just a human perspective, no one should ever want something like this to pass. No one. Regardless of your ideological beliefs, philosophical beliefs, religious beliefs, like you pick one, it doesn't matter. Regardless of those beliefs, those are your beliefs. Imposing those beliefs on other people is never okay. Providing an illustration of your beliefs and shining through as an example based on how you live your life and people being attracted to it, that is how you share your ideological beliefs, your philosophical beliefs, your religious beliefs, not by imposition. That's the key. If you have to impose your beliefs on someone else, it's wrong. Period. There is no room for arguing that. But if people are attracted to your beliefs because of what they see, absolutely go for it, 100%. And this law is nothing but an imposition of beliefs on people and a restriction of actions based on that imposition of beliefs.
Yeah.
It's barbaric.
It is.
At best. It's inhumane is what it is. But we can leave it at barbaric just for the sake of sounding better.
Yeah.
I so want to rant on that, but I think that that's where I should probably leave that.
Yeah. You've also got to tell me about what's going on in Ohio.
This one absolutely blew my mind.
I heard about this the other day from a friend, and I'm like, he's in the healthcare field. I'm like, oh, this is not a good week.
This is an overextension of power by a long shot. So the issue in Cincinnati, there is a person that's been hospitalized. A person has been hospitalized with COVID who, no other details that I'm aware of, there may be plenty of articles on it, but no other details other than hospitalized, got to a semi-steady point, and then started to decline further. And his wife requested the court system to interject and force medical professionals to treat him with
Ivermectin?
Basically a horse dewormer. I mean, there are two big things here that I just cannot wrap my head around. So one is no judge, none, should ever be able to force anyone in healthcare to perform anything, period, ever, under any circumstances. The people who are providing healthcare go through a process of education, training, they swear an oath. Their purpose is to treat you appropriately. Nothing outside of the realm of those things that are beneficial and maybe not necessarily tested, because there are experimental treatments, right? But there are treatments that are vetted in some fashion. Ivermectin, is that how you pronounce it?
Yes.
I actually don't know for sure.
Ivermectin.
All right. So ivermectin has been looked at in a handful of clinical trials. It has been strongly cautioned against by multiple agencies because of its ability to cause severe negative reactions in humans to the extent of poisoning and potentially death. It is not an approved treatment for COVID. It has been touted by people of questionable medical background. There is no reason a judge should ever be able to order a doctor to administer something that technically breaks the Hippocratic Oath. Again, the whole foundation of what a doctor is there to do is undermined by a judge ordering them to do something else. Like, I cannot reconcile this dynamic. Now, if the judge had ordered the hospital to allow the prescribing physician to come in and administer it, that's a different scenario. It's still stupid, but that I at least can understand the rationale behind. Right? Am I just completely off base here? Or does that make a lot more sense than saying, here's a treatment that you and your hospital and everybody else do not believe would work, that some other person has prescribed, you now have to administer it even though you strongly object?
It's an absurd breach of power.
Yes. Like, if anything, what the judge should have ordered is that the hospital allow this other person to come in and perform treatment and assume sole responsibility for the health and welfare of that patient.
No, I don't even think that's okay.
I don't think it's okay either, but I think that at least has a legal argument to be made. Some level of legal basis.
I'm not a lawyer. I as a rational thinking person, I mean,
So we
ahead.
have to throw rational out of it for
no,
a moment.
no. I am not throwing rational out of it. We don't have to throw rational out of it. We can still be rational, even when those around us are being incredibly irrational.
So I agree. That's not the premise for this part of the question. This part of the question is more, if you were going to issue this ruling to allow something that's basically going to kill a patient, shouldn't the onus be on the person prescribing the treatment?
I mean, you could leave the hospital because
well, can you?
I don't
like this is a gray area for me. I don't know if you could discharge yourself under those circumstances.
Well, I mean, I don't think he has the ability to discharge himself because he was in an ICU unit.
Well, he was in an induced coma. He couldn't.
He was in.
There's no way he could discharge himself.
I said ICU unit, which is intensive care unit. Whoops. Anyway, he's in the ICU. He can't actually do it. So no, he can't.
Right. So at best, from a legal perspective, the only thing that you could potentially do is to say, I can transition care from the ownership of the hospital staff to this other person that you've requested.
Right. Well, then he has to be transferred out of the hospital.
And that part I don't know for sure. I mean, I follow the line of thought.
Right. So if there's something in place, a precedent of some sort where a non-hospital, healthcare provider, quote unquote, can administer a drug to a patient in a particular hospital, if that exists already, then okay, by all means, that is an avenue to follow. I'm not aware of it, as in, like, I have no idea. I don't know enough about the healthcare system to know that is or is not a thing. So so assuming that is something that is practiced enough that there's a provision for it, even if it's happened one time and there's been a provision created to allow someone to come in and administer something that the hospital wouldn't, the hospital staff wouldn't do, then okay, but that's allowed. But to force a doctor, nurse, any healthcare provider to administer drugs to a patient that they know not to be helpful or they know to be harmful, that's a huge breach of power.
Right. The first part of that is what I'm focusing on. So let's just say that this hospital has no relationship with the prescribing physician. At best, what the judge should be able to do is say, even though you have no arrangement, I am legally relieving you of your responsibilities and assigning this other physician to care for and be responsible for the patient at the request of the patient's wife. They may still reside in your facility. This is not saying that this is a ongoing agreement between you and this other physician. This is me saying that in this specific case, I am transferring patient responsibility to this other physician at the request of the wife, but they will be housed in your facility because it's too risky to transport or because it's whatever the case may be. The caveats there don't matter. The point is that I wouldn't have as big a problem with.
So being ignorant of the healthcare system, maybe that's a thing that already exists, but it just seems like a sort of a scary precedent that hospitals might take advantage of.
Oh, I agree. Like that takes nothing from my arguments against this overall in many different forms. But what I'm getting at is that if the legal system is invoked in a case like this, the most reach they have or should have would be agreeing with whoever lobbied the case, saying, okay, responsibility, ownership, everything transitions from you and your staff and your agency and everything else to this one, but we need the patient to continue to reside here for whatever reason. I can see that at least being, if I bring that to a court and request that type of intervention, because I can't do it through like hospital administration, that I can at least justify to an extent. I still have problems with it because the court meddling with medical treatment is absurd in every possible way. But I can at least see where if I, as a person, went and asked like hospital administration to transfer a patient from their hospital to another one, and maybe I was met with a, well, no, because our policies don't allow that. Well, sure, I could see pursuing legal recourse to say, well, your policies may not allow it, but I need this person moved for whatever reason, and I'm absolving you of all responsibility for my decision. That makes some level of sense to me. The ruling that was handed down was not that. The ruling that was handed down was this lady went and got a prescription for a drug that has not been approved to treat COVID symptoms, infections, anything related to COVID, has been proven to be toxic to humans in certain doses. And the judge has ordered those people overseeing this particular patient to administer this prescription. That is absolutely absurd and should never have happened. But you can see where the difference in what I'm describing that I think that the court system could possibly do versus what they did are two drastically different things. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. It does.
And I disagree with it all, regardless of which scenario. It's just that if the court system is allowed to do anything in that sphere, it should very much be limited to acknowledging the absolution of responsibility on one party and transferring it to another.
I mean, it's just like, which would you rather have, the hard to swallow pill or the harder to swallow pill?
Yeah, I think either way it's kind of absurd. I mean, if you're not going to follow the advice and guidance and opinions of those people that you take someone in to be treated for, then why did you go there in the first place? Like that's really the fundamental question here. If you're sick, whatever, if you have a broken arm, like take your pick. If you have some medical condition or medical issue, why do you choose to go see the person you go to see, or the agency or group or hospital, whatever?
It's because you think that I don't even know if, there's a combination. There's many different reasons why people don't go and seek health, sound healthcare advice. It's a reason why people don't go to the doctor. But at the end of the day, most people are going to go to the doctor when they see someone dying or they are dying. And when that happens, the thing that you said you would never do or that you wouldn't do for a long time now seems to be the only option, as opposed to death is something that you're going to seek out. So once he's, stabilized in an induced coma, do this other thing, because now you're grasping at straws. Did this work? Did that work? Did this work? Can anything? What kind of things can we do to make this work? Because at the end of the day, you get into an induced coma, you're probably going to die. Not always, but that's what it looks like at that point. This woman is looking at her, is seeing, she knows that her husband is in an induced coma because of complications from COVID-19. You're doing anything that you think you can, because some people can't just stand by and feel helpless. And there's so much disinformation floating around that when you hear people say, oh, it does this, ivermectin cured me of COVID, You're like, well, why aren't the doctors doing it?
Yeah. Suddenly that friend from high school is a medical professional.
Yeah.
I've thought about it a lot lately because I have certain people in my life who are remaining obstinate and are choosing to go unvaccinated. And at this point, it's only a matter of time before they die. I mean, it's somewhat of a pessimistic outlook, but the people that I'm concerned about have other underlying medical conditions. The likelihood of them surviving an infection is pretty low. Nothing I can say about it has changed their mind so far. I can either continue to attempt to influence that decision or just make my peace with the fact that at some point I'm going to get a phone call that they're in the hospital. I've finally chosen to go with the latter.
I mean, I remember before my father passed away, they put him in an induced coma. I know that feeling. It was really hard to just let go because I knew he wasn't coming back. I knew when he was diagnosed he wasn't coming back, actually. I had a few weeks to prepare for it. We have a number of different ways set up for you to get in touch with us to provide feedback, ask questions, or just comment in about something we've discussed.
You can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at untitled_hosts, or shoot an email over to untitled.hosts@gmail.com.
Or get in touch directly with Jesse at jthart.com, or get in touch with me, John, via telepathy.
If you would like to support our work or are interested in listening to our new after show feed, head over to patreon.com/theUntitledPodcast and take a look at the options we have set up.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you've enjoyed the show.
And we hope to connect with more of you as we continue this journey.
That's a wrap.